During this video about Adobe Experience Design, we are going to talk about how we can prototype a website or an app into Adobe XD by using the prototype tools. So, in the previous video, we saw how we can create a presentation with Adobe XD, and we used our artboards as slides. And we have created consecutive links between consecutive artboards. In fact, as we can see, we have, for example, this first artboard linked with the second artboard, the second with the third, and going on. But when we create a website or an app, we do not follow this path, but we follow a hierarchical structure, a pyramidal structure. So let's remember that when we are in the prototype area of Adobe XD, we can click on Ctrl A to see all of the links that we have created. And if we hover with our mouse onto the link, we can see, for example, that this is a tap link, and if we click on it, we can have all of the information right here. So, I will give you a suggestion before we start with the video. So, you can go to this website, this Adobe website, and you can save the link from here, or you can just search on Google to learn prototype. And when you go into this page, you can have a lot of information about the prototype area of Adobe XD. So you can see what's new, because as we know, Adobe XD is always renovating and they are always adding something more to it or some changes, and when there are the changes, you can see them from here. Also, you will have some tutorials, for example, to create hover interactions, and we will see them into this video. And we also have a lot of videos and tutorials about Auto-Animate. Also, we have downloaded in one of the previous video a file called Auto-Animate. That file is very useful, and at the end of this video we will see some of the animations into that file. So we can also see the component states, the interactions, the scrolling and fixed elements, and also the voice and audio. In fact, as we saw into the prototype area, we can also trigger an interaction with our voice. So let's now go back to our file. So we are now going to use these slides, these artboards, to create our website. So we can move these artboards here and also this text that we don't need. We can go to the design area and we can also erase this text that we do not need. So the first thing that we have to do when we create a website or an app to make it easier to prototype it is to create, as I said before, a hierarchical structure. So we will use this welcome to the presentation slide to create our homepage. So the homepage of a website is the first page that you see. So, of course, into the pyramidal structure, it is the first artboard, the one that's above all of the other artboards. So, we can put this and we can write homepage here, and we can use the smart guides to align it to the center, and then we can have all of these artboards here. So, we have now our home page, and we can pretend, for example, that this site is a site that talks about cities in Italy and has photographs of them. So we can, for example, assign to each of the artboard a city in Italy. So we can call this artboard Rome, and we can put it here, and we can copy and paste it into the other slide, and we can call this Milan. Now we can go to the other slide and write Florence, and then we can have, for example, here Venice. So we have our website, and we now have to create a menu into the home page that will lead us to each of the, let's call them, articles. So we pretend that we have a website and we have 4 cities for now, and we have articles with photos of these cities. So we want to go from the home page to all of these slides. So we will now create a menu into the home page, and of course we will have into the menu the option to go back to the home page. So we will write home, and then we can copy and paste it, and we can write the first city, Rome. So we can write the second city, we are also aligning them, which is Milan, and then we have Florence, and the last is Venice. So we have now all of our artboards into a menu. As we can see, we have home, which is this artboard, Rome, Milan, Florence, and Venice. So we can create links between all of these artboards. We can now align this text, and when we have all of these texts selected, we will click with the right side of our mouse, and we will click on group and then also on make component. So we can see now our green edge, and we are now ready to create the links. So we can go to prototype, and we can click on home, and of course we have to see if we have any links already done. Since we have used the same slides, the same artboards that we used in the previous video, and we in the previous video have created some links, we can go with Ctrl A and see if we still have the links. So we can go to Ctrl A, click on the link, and erase it. So you will have to click on Ctrl A every time, because once you erase a link, you cannot see the other links unless you click on Ctrl A again. So we can click one last time, and we can see that we have no connections, no links for now. So we can create our new links. So we will now click on the Rome text, and we will create a link between the Rome text and the Rome artboard. This link has a tab trigger, we have a transition type of action, the destination is live 2, we have a dissolve animation with an ease out easing and a duration of 0.3 seconds. So we can do the same thing with Milan, Florence, and Venice. So we can now copy our menu in all of these artboards, and also you will see that all of the links that we have created into this menu will be saved also when we copy them. So we can have all of these links also in all of these artboards. This would have happened also if we have copied the text and then created the links. This is because this is the original component, the original instance, and the copies of it are always connected to it. So we can see this in practice. So we can click on Ctrl C and then on Ctrl V onto the other artboards. As you can see, we have all of these links automatically saved. So We can now click on Ctrl A and see that we have all of these links. The last thing that we have to do before going to preview is to link the home option in the menu to the home page. So we can do this manually from artboard to artboard, and we can go a little closer because we have now a lot of links, so it could be easy to lose some links. So we can go still a little closer. Okay, and now we can go and create the link, and also with the last slide. So we can click on Ctrl A, and as we can see, we have now a lot of links, but it will be all really clear once we are into the preview. So we can click on preview, and from the home page, we can go to Rome. From Rome, of course, we can go to the home page, but from Rome, we can also go to Milan, to Florence, and to Venice, and go back to the home and go to Venice from the home page, and we can, with the links that we have created, go through all of the artboards from all of the artboards, and always go back to the artboard that we want. So, of course, we can also have, for example, 2 pages that we can go from Rome. For example, let's say that into this website we also have some articles dedicated with more info. So we can copy this artboard, we can go to the design area, we can copy this artboard, Ctrl C and then Ctrl V, and we can move this artboard here by following the pyramid that we have created. So we can copy it here and then do another copy. So we can move these 2 artboard and aligning them with the center of the artboard above, and we can, for example, say that from this Rome page we can have more info on the Colosseum and also on the Trevi fountain. So we will have now to create a menu. So we can simply create a text and we can write Colosseum. Of course, we can make the text smaller. So we can copy it now and then write Trevi fountain. So we can group these 2 texts and also make them components. And now we can go back to the prototype area and create the links. So we will have to link Colosseum with the Colosseum slide. We always have a tap trigger and all of the options that we have into these other links, and the same thing with Travis Fountain, but with this artboard. Of course, we will have to link now these artboards, but as we said before, since I've made a copy of this first instance and then I've made a copy of this artboard, we have the links also from here. So we do not have to create any more links manually. So we can go to the preview now and we can click on the first artboard. And now we can go to Rome, and from Rome we can go and get more info onto the Colosseum, and we can go back to Rome from the Colosseum, but also to Rome and to Milan. We can go to Trevi's Fountain and then go to Florence. And of course, if you want, you can erase some of the links because maybe you do not want to go to the Travis Fountain directly to Venice, but you will have to pass to Rome to get to Venice. So you can really experiment and play with these links. So we've seen for all of these videos that we have talked about prototype, the tab option, and the keys and gamepad option. Today we will talk about the drag option, and also we will talk about some types of transitions. So to make it easier to understand how these type of triggers and transitions work, I've made some examples so that we can see first how the transition, the interaction, and the animation works, and then we will see how to create it. So, for example, we have this first transition, this first trigger, which is drag. So we can click on here and we can go to play to the preview. So as we can see into the preview, we have this image and this image as we can see into this first artboard. But if we do this with our mouse, so if we click on the photo and we go from left to right, we can go from a picture to another with this transition. So as we can see from this artboard, we have a drag trigger. So we have a drag trigger with an auto-animate type of action with the destination from this artboard to this artboard and from this artboard to this artboard with an uneasing. So let's see how we can create the same type of interaction. So we will go to the design area and we will create an artboard. So we can move this artboard here, and now we can go to our folder and drag an image. We can scale it. So we'll scale this image and we can put it here. So we will take also another picture. So we will drag it here, we will scale it, and we will make the same dimension for these two pictures with these smart guides. So we have these two pictures and we can group them. So with the right side of our mouse, we will click on group, and now we will copy this artboard with Ctrl+C and then Ctrl+V. We have this artboard. The next thing that we are going to do is to move this picture in this way. So let's go near here so we can align them. So we have now these two components, this first group and the second group behind it. So we can now go to prototype and we can create the first link. We can click onto this first group and we can link it with this artboard with a drag trigger, an auto-animate type of action with this destination and with an uneasing. And the same thing we will do with this group right here. So we can choose the other group so that we can have one group that leads to another. We have the same type of interaction, and we can now go to the preview. So we can now play the preview, and as we can see, we have now the same transition that we had into these artboards. It's really cool also to see, for example, what happens when we change these photos. So we can see that we can do some vector changes with these pictures, and let's go back to prototype and let's play the preview. And as we can see, when we do this transition, we can see the picture rounding. So the next transition that we are going to see, the next trigger, is always a drag trigger, but in this case, we will rotate this picture. So let's see how this works into the preview. So we can click on play, and if we drag with our mouse to this picture, we can rotate it. So let's see how we can create this drag transition, this drag interaction. We will now create another artboard. We will go to the design area and we can click on artboard. It has created an artboard here. This is because Adobe XD tries to understand where it should create an artboard. So we have now our artboard and we can drag an image here. So we can scale this image, align it with the center of the artboard, and then we can copy this artboard. So we can rotate this picture at a 90-degree angle, and now we can go to prototype. So we can click on this picture and we can create a link with this artboard. In this case, we will only have to create one link, and as we saw in the previous case, we had to create the link from here to here and from here to here. In this case, we will only have to create the link between the first and the second artboard, but not from this artboard to this first artboard. So we have the drag trigger, the auto-animate type, we have all of our options set, and now we can go to the preview. Also, in this case, we can rotate our picture. Let's now see another type of action. And in this case, we have used the overlay type of action. Let's see this in practice. Let's go to the preview. And in this case, we can click on more info and we will have this rectangle, which is part of this artboard. And we can see behind these informations that we have the previous artboard as a background. In fact, with the overlay, we can overlay a graphic on a background that remains the previous panel, the previous artboard. So let's see how I have created this interaction. We can create an artboard and we can move this artboard where we need it. So we can move it here, and now we can take a picture from our folder, scale it, and create a text with more info so that we can use this text to create the link. And now we can create another artboard near this. Of course, it will create it here because Adobe XD thinks that we have these artboards connected, but we will move it here, and into this artboard we will write info page. So we can create a rectangle as I created here, and as we create this rectangle we will select a background blur and we will control the opacity, and now we can drag our image from our folder. I have copied it into the rectangle, so I can go with Ctrl Z and I can copy my image into the work area, and now I can scale it and move it into the rectangle. I can write a text here and also other text. Let's pretend that we have all of the formations of this picture in here. So we can now move this text here, and now we can go to the prototype area and create the link. We will have to create the link with this text. We can create the link from this first artboard to this second artboard, and we can have a tab trigger, but we will have an overlay type of action. And as you can see, as I clicked on overlay, it has changed these options. This trigger we can see, and we can see also this green X. We have an overlay type of action, we have this destination, we have a dissolve animation with a non-easing. So we can go to the preview, and we can see that if we click on more info, we have this type of overlay. And in fact, also when I clicked on overlay, it has made this artboard transparent. We can now see preserve scroll position, and in this case we will first explain how this works and then see it. We have created these two artboards and they have a vertical scrolling. In fact, as you can see, they have an edge, and we have for this artboard a top A and a bottom A, and this B artboard has a top B, a bottom B with a preserve scroll position activated, and a bottom B with a preserve scroll position disactivated. So we can write here on and here off. So as you can see, we have into the prototype area the top A linked with the second artboard. The bottom A is not linked to anything. We have the top B connected to the previous artboard, the bottom B with the preserved scroll position on connected to this other artboard, and the bottom B with the preserved scroll position off connected to this other artboard. Let's see how it works. We can go to the preview, and we are into this artboard. We can scroll through this artboard, and if we click on top A, we will go to top B. As we can see, we can scroll, and now if we click on bottom B with the preserve scroll position on, we will go to the bottom A. And if we go with the bottom B with the preserve scroll position off, we will go to the top A. In fact, when we click on bottom B with the preserve scroll position on, we will go to this artboard in the same position that's under the edge. And when we go to click to the bottom B off, we go to the top A, so above the edge. Now we can see these last effects, these last animations. So we can click onto the preview, and when we go hover with our mouse, we can see that this black object changes its color. Also, when I go over this rectangle, I have this animation. Let's see how we can create this type of animations. We can create an artboard. We will go to the design area. We can create an artboard here, and we can create a circle, an ellipse. We can now fill this ellipse with this color, and we can erase this border, and we will create a component of this ellipse. So with the right side of our mouse, we will click on Make Component. As we can see, when we create a component, we will see here default state. So we can click on plus and create an hover state. So we will now change the color of this circle when we are into the hover state option. we can change this color, and we can also add a border. And we have for hover state this object with this color and this border, and for the default state this object with this color and no border. We can go to the prototype area, and as we can see, we already have this link. So the only thing that we have to remember is to always have the default state on when we create the link, because if we have the hover state on, it will mean that we go back in a way that's not right. So we want to go from the default state to the hover state, and not from the hover state to the default state. So we can now go to the preview, and if we hover with our mouse, we can see that it will change its color, and also it will create a border. So this is the first type of transition with the component, but we can create also this animated transition. The only thing that we have to add is a mask. We can now create another circle, and we can fill it in black, and we can remove the border, and now we will create a mask. We can create a copy of this circle to create the mask, and we can create also a shape with the pen tool. So we can use the handles to create the shape that we want. We can create a shape that close, and now we can see if everything is set. Okay, so we can scale it and put it onto this object. So we will fill this object, and also we can create a background blur and change the opacity. Now, to create a mask with shape, we will click onto the right side of our mouse, and before we create a mask with shape, we will send this to back. So we can select now these two elements, right side of our mouse, and select mask with shape. We have this mask, and now we can create our component. We can put this mask here. We can select these two objects, group them, and then make them components. So for the default state, we want to have this object hidden. So we can go to the layers and go to this component and hide this object. And this is our default state. Now we will create the new state, and in this state we will have this object shown. So we can put it also in here. And now we have for our state 2 this object with this mask, and into the default state we only have this black circle. So we can now go to the prototype area. We have the default state on, and we will have to create this interaction in this way. We will have to click on tap or hover, and in this case we will click on tap, and we will have an auto-animate type of action, and we can choose the state 2. So we can now go to the preview, and when we hover here we can see this transition, and also when we tap on here we can see this other transition. So we can also go and see some of the transition that we have here into this Auto-Animate kit. And for example, here we have a time transition, In fact, I'm not touching anything, or we can see here, if you go to prototype, you can always see what kind of interaction you have. And if we click on this text, we can have this type of transition. So this is all for this video. Thank you for watching this tutorial about Adobe Experience Design. If you have any question, you can ask them in the comments, and I invite you to see the other videos into this channel. Thank you again, and we will see each other in the next video about Adobe XD.